Up,
Oh,
up.
Yes. And you guys haven't even watched it yet.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it backwards?
No, it's awesome.
Okay.
Oh, we're live. Okay. Okay, we're finally live. We can share now. Why don't you take a second? If you're on the YouTube one, you can share the link, or top left corner, you can copy streaming link and post it elsewhere. So if you want to share anywhere, you can. Okay.
Good job, Tucker.
Yay.
Thank you.
Okay. I love it.
Thank you.
Hey, okay, we got a few people on YouTube already. Sorry that we are a little bit late. We had some figuring out technical stuff. We got a few people logging in on YouTube. Hey, who are you? Who's watching? Jake, what's up, bud?
Hi, Jake.
So we can't see unless you comment who's tuned in, but Jake, glad you tuned in. Sorry it took us a few minutes here to get going. But we're up. So I'll share the feeds. Gonna make sure this is on here.
Sorry.
Okay.
What was that, Danny?
I'll text you.
Okay.
Okay. We should post it. Does someone want to post it on the Anchor Facebook real quick?
Just
You can copy streaming link on the top left and go post it on Anchor Facebook would be sweet. Hey, again, sorry that we hopped on a few minutes late. We got a few of you on YouTube now. Thanks for your patience as we hopped on. We're going to try to just chat for about an hour here. We have had some questions already come in. If you're watching and you haven't submitted a question yet, the easiest way is either on YouTube. You can submit a question there, or if you go to our Instagram, at Go Anchor Church. If you're not following us yet, in our story there, I think the first slide on our story today is a question box where you can just write your question there. We got those pulled up in front of us. So if you would like to ask a question that you haven't yet submitted, probably the easiest way is go to our Instagram and hop on our story, and you can submit questions there. We got a few questions already turned in that we will get to, and we'll give it a couple more minutes here, but this is our first time with the Flynns and the Elks on our roundtable. So we wanted to check in with you guys. Let's go Flynns first, because on my computer, at least, they're the top left here. I don't know what it looks like on you, but for us, the Flynns are up there. What's it like in the Flynn household these days? You've been quarantined for a bit. Kids are at home. Tell us about life.
Yeah. Kids are crazy. I work from home, so it's somewhat normal for me in some ways, but I think doing school at home has been definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I think we've had tears every day since we started from someone. But yeah, I think we're getting into a routine, and I was reminded, I don't know, I just felt like I was reminded last night that I wouldn't have had this opportunity to have Jaden and Kaylee home like I do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's pretty special. So I think that was a good reminder for me, just to kind of take it a little bit slower, maybe lower my expectations of what homeschool is going to look like, and just remember that they're going to be fine in the end, and just enjoy this time. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we're remembering is this is a fairly rare time, rare time in our kids' lives. They'll remember this forever. So it's nice to be able to enjoy this time with them, and working from homes. A lot of people are working from home right now, but for me, it's kind of a nice blessing to be able to hang out with the kids, come upstairs and say hi, or have lunch with them, or, leave work early and go do something. So
You don't do that.
no.
Grace, what's been most challenging with the kids at home? And maybe you've already referenced it, but what's most rewarding?
I think most challenging is just
I
trying.
don't
Oh,
What happened?
Sorry. Okay,
I
sorry.
think what's challenging is just getting into a routine, and I think I have more laundry piled up that I'm staying at home than I did when I wasn't. So yeah, that's probably our biggest challenge. Kaylee reminded me today that she has none jammies left in her drawer. Okay.
I think for me, I in the mornings oftentimes spend time with Elson, who's my youngest, and while the kids go off to school with Grace, so I'm kind of missing that time with my youngest. Just and I think he's feeling it too. Has a lot more outbursts and things like that when we don't have just him and me time, or I mean, the kids are here all the time, so there's just no like escaping that. So I think the kids are probably going to eat each other before the end of this. But I think the best thing is honestly having the kids home, because they're at school all day. So it's nice to be able to come upstairs and just hang out with them. So it's been an adventure, but it's actually been kind of cool in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, that is cool.
Good.
Grace, they were laughing. The Seversons were laughing because I got my milk out. This has been like my go-to snack. Is the milks. Because we're getting the school lunches and the kids each get 2. So we get 6 milks a day. And they're not drinking 6 milks a day. So this might be a snack these days.
I always
keep saying.
So Danny poured me some tea, but it's a little too hot for now. So I'm going to start with my personal milk. But yeah. Alex, how's it going? What's life like?
Man, not a lot. Like, obviously things have changed, but not a lot has changed, to be honest. Like, I'm still working. Residential construction is still kind of in that fine, as long as it's in spaces with less than 10 people. So I've been working no differently, honestly, than when before all this started. So yeah, I don't know that, I mean, a lot has changed necessarily with like family and work. Definitely feeling like the difference of just not face-to-face interaction with people, like just the difference of community, of not seeing the people that you see on a regular basis and are living life with. And I know we have a ton of ability with Zoom and different things to like connect, but it's still, I mean, obviously that's a substitute, not necessarily the same as the real thing. So feeling that for sure. I can't think of like a whole lot that's different.
I think we're seeing a big difference in the kids as far as like they're too young to really be able to interact with anybody on like media like this. Really, they just they'd sit for like 30 seconds probably. But even the little bit that they saw people at a small group or at church seem to, I don't know,
grandparents visiting.
Yeah, like get them through. I don't know. They just have. Even today, they asked me multiple times, "Are we going to go somewhere?" I'm like, they're just, and it's hard to explain to them because they just think everyone's sick. Like, because that's what we tried to say is there's a lot of sick people, so we can't. Everything's closed. It's just so there's been a lot more behavioral issues as far as like a lot more fighting and whining and just general discipline type frustrations. Challenges for sure. So. That's the only noticeable difference.
To have the kids with each other 24/7, which your kids aren't in school yet, but to add to that and not see anyone else, have no other outlet. It's just really emotional bouncing back and forth among the kids is pretty wild.
For sure.
A phrase, again, I don't know where this necessarily came from, but it's just kind of been running through my mind at least the last few days is the reality that a lot of us are alone. Even if we're just in our families, there's isolation to a degree for everybody. But what does it mean for us to be alone but not lonely? So we'll get to some other questions that have come in a second, but for you guys, are you finding any avenues to combat loneliness, even though there's isolation. How are you guys doing along those lines? What's it look like to be alone but not lonely? You guys finding any community in this?
We I think our 2 ways, we did a Zoom, like with our small group, we just did a Zoom kind of like this. And then Mario Kart. There's like random people.
My Mario Kart.
No, well, yes, I started with Ryan. We went out about it then after that.
We were invited the first time to join Marcy and Draylon, the Asphyx, when they were doing it. So now there's just like anytime we find someone who's doing that, I don't know.
So like once a week we'll be Mario Karting with the Strongs or the Asphyx, or we played. So Marcy and Draylon and me and Cassie jumped in with with Cody and Cassie and their whole family. So we were playing with like mom and dad and uncle and aunt and all this. It was just like,
Yeah.
So it was just like a weird way to feel connected with people.
And if you're like have them on speakerphone while we're playing, it felt like you're in the room together to some degree.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
So yeah, a good fun, lighthearted way to like actually have
great.
Conversation in the middle of all of it. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Hey, I see there's a few more people that have logged on to YouTube. Want to let you know, if you want to ask any questions, you could either just put them in the YouTube chat, but we're looking at on our Instagram page. If you go to @GoAnchorChurch, in our stories, there's a box where you can submit questions there. And that's kind of where we've got a lot of our questions collected. So you can ask them there if you'd like, and we'll tackle a couple of them here. Tucker, we're going to jump to you. Give us a quick update. You did a Zoom discipleship for the first time just a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Give us the quick update on that. And then I'm going to follow that up with a question that's come in about Bible translations. A lot of people are digging into the word right now, which is awesome. And I think a lot of it within our church has to do with the foundation you've built up the last month or two. But even beyond that, just getting focus on time and focus on what's important. A lot of people digging into the word right now. So give us an update on discipleship. And then I would love to just have you give a couple minute answer on recommendations of how to choose a translation, or what translation might be easy for someone who's reading through the Bible the first time, or translations that maybe to stay distant from because it's maybe more difficult. But I'll let you talk for a few minutes.
Yeah. Discipleship was awesome. There's probably, I think, 12 or 13 people that hopped on, and we started talking just through Colossians. We talked through this evening, just kind of a book intro, what's going on in the region of Colossae, and kind of the geographical landscape of the region that it's in, and what was facing the church in a specific form of heretical doctrine, and how that's going to influence what we see Paul write, and how understanding that as we move into starting to read the book is going to really help us, one, understand what we're reading, but two, track Paul's kind of conversation to them. That often when we have no context or background and we jump into a book of the Bible, Paul, the author's generally saying very specific things, but because we lack the context, we have no idea what it is that we're reading and how to pick up on those cues. So talking through, we spent a fair amount of time, like I said, just talking through kind of what specifically was facing the church, the Colossian church. It was really sweet. I'm going to be, so those Zoom calls are from 6:30 to 7:30 on Wednesdays, and people are welcome to jump in and join whenever they can. And then on Thursdays, I'm just going to record a quick 10-15 minute kind of recap teaching of the content that we covered and post that on our website. Awesome. And we posted, after our conversation, we posted a handout. So it kind of details what the study is going to be about, where we're going, kind of the vision and direction we're going with it. And then there's some guided questions as we read through each chapter that are going to help us kind of key in on some of the key points that Paul's trying to teach these people, and obviously consequently teach us as believers today. So it was sweet. It was really cool.
I love it.
Good.
I'm a King James guy through and through, nothing but. No, that's dope. I feel like that one never loses its humor. and if you haven't read King James, that's probably why you don't find it funny. But if you have, like, oh. Yeah. So generally, with Bible translations, there's again generally two kind of schools of thought. Of more of a thought for thought translation. So that would be like hearing me say a couple of sentences and telling me back what I said in your own words, being faithful to the message that I just communicated, but being less focused on using the same words I used and more focused on communicating the same heart and intent that I had. And then there's the other school of thought that would say, well, what we're really focused on is giving you as close to a word for word translation as we can. And so generally what you're going to find there is with things like ESV, NASB, those type of, they tend to be a little bit more difficult for us to read because they're not presented to us in kind of the syntax that we're used to reading and engaging in.
Yeah.
Whereas the NLT, some of the NIV, those are going to be more geared towards that thought for thought. Let's capture the essence of what's being said here and communicate it in a way that's readily understandable. So if you're new engaging in the scriptures, it's very encouraging to go to something like the NLT. It generally is going to speak in more modern English in a way that is easier for you to understand. I would recommend, as we talk through in our What is the Bible conversation, anytime you're reading through scripture, read through multiple translations to understand the thought, but then to also see kind of the way in which the words are ordered or structured, or what specific words are trying to be used there. Both carry a lot of weight. And then if we're really kind of just going for a broader understanding, there's obviously kind of the paraphrase translations of the Passion Translation and the Message version as well, that are very oriented towards modern day English, more the poetic nature of some of what the scriptures would teach. So I don't necessarily have this feeling of there is a good and a bad, knowing what translation is what, and why it's beneficial to use what and when tends to be my response. So if someone were new to the scriptures and coming up to me and like, I don't know where to start, what should I read? I'd probably tell them to read an NLT translation or something along that line. Whereas if someone was really wanting to study like what we're doing in Colossians, I'd say, well, probably read through like NIV and ESV. Those would kind of be the two translations that I would choose there, as you kind of go through on a deeper, more kind of studious reading of the text.
Love it.
That was a good answer.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Okay, go around the board. What translation are you currently reading right now?
I
Go
think I have it. I think it's at ESV.
You're doing ESV.
Okay.
Yes.
Clint, what are you reading right now? ESV?
Yep.
Both of you?
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what you got?
What do you?
ESV.
NLT. I kind of jump back and forth, but right now I'm in NLT because I'm in the Old Testament, so I go to NLT.
Right.
I have an NASB as well.
Was that?
NASB is one I have as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nice.
Seversons, what are you reading?
We use the ESV in this house. Just kidding.
I would say like 95% ESV, but I also have a Passion Translation. I think it's just the New Testament though, and Psalms that sometimes when I'm just like wanting a little bit more, I'll open that up, and it feels a little bit more like palatable or something sometimes. So I kind of supplement with that, but the ESV is my main translation. So yeah.
Love it. Good stuff.
What about you guys? Did you say? Daddy said.
ESV. I didn't know, but
in my morning reading, I'm actually walking through the Passion Translation, New Testament right now. But in study, I study for preaching. I use a lot of them, but I love to study ESV, and then I usually preach NLT just because the language is easy in teaching. But right now, my own personal time's the Passion.
I'm a big NIV guy. I have been for the last couple of months. It's been, if I feel like it kind of gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds. It gives a little bit of like the ESV language. When you read through them, they're pretty similar, but it is structured in a way that follows probably more closely aligned to the NLT structural component of the sentence. So anyway, I've just kind of been sitting in the NIV.
I can ask a question about that, Tucker.
Yeah.
So my understanding is NIV was kind of, it wasn't discounted, but it definitely was kind of like, ESV is better now because of some of the newer things that they've translated. Is that true?
From my understanding, yeah, there was one of the latest translations that was done from the NIV was done in about 2011, and it is circulated back to some degree. It's gained a little bit more momentum back from it, but there was a couple of passages with the NIV translations that left out some words that people did not, that felt very important, what the passage was talking about. So the omission of some of that was kind of faux pas, but
you're back.
What's that?
But you're back.
Yeah, but we're back. In a lot of the reference I use a lot through that content and what is the Bible, they kind of set those paradigms of thought for thought or word for word, and kind of land in a similar place of it, that if we're looking at a spectrum, kind of the NIV falls pretty close to the middle ground here. And again, not that one necessarily is better or worse, but we kind of get a little bit of both.
Nice.
With something.
Awesome.
We grew up at Valley Christian where we had to pledge allegiance to the NIV.
Oh, yeah.
It was the only Bible allowed in the school, and we did all of our memory in NIV. So,
Oh my God. It's like I was gonna say.
Didn't we all
Awana too, I think, used NIV. I
Did they?
cannot memorize in any other translation because it completely throws me off.
it took me a long time to be okay departing from the NIV at all, and I still study it. I have nothing against it. I love the NIV, but it felt like I was cheating on the Bible when I read something besides NIV for a while. All right, hey, we're 30 minutes in. We're gonna do more speed round.
Okay. So there's a question on here about dating your spouse while in quarantine. Does anybody have ideas on dating your spouse in quarantine?
Tucker, go.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and step out since I'm the only one in solo in this frame.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear too because I literally have no idea.
We're quarantining from each other actually during this time.
No, we're not.
Has anybody quarantine dated yet?
Oh man.
We've
No.
watched a bunch of movies, just the two of us.
Yeah, life is a
I
date.
guess.
Yeah.
Figure that out. Watch some good movies.
We got the kids Papa Murphy's one night, and then we got Wally and Bucks instead, and we had our dinner kind of separate than the kids, but that might kind of be the extent of it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Tonight, oh, good. Tonight we went on a drive as a family, but I don't know if that counts as a date. But just to get around the town, I think, yeah, it's so hard because, of course, dating is good and outside of the house and without your kids and all of that. But I think so much of it is perspective and like, I don't know how to say it. I don't even know what I'm thinking. Maybe did you guys all freeze? Yeah, I don't know how to say what I should have wrote it down.
Just like intentional time with each other. Is that what you talked about?
Even in the midst of having kids around.
Well,
Yeah.
I just think like that without quarantine, and this is something totally different that I would have said, I don't have a coffee drinking problem. But then you take away all of like drum and black coffee and all that stuff. And I realized, wow, that was a habit that I was unaware of, that I was really kind of addicted to. And I think the need to have a date outside of the house to be able to date your spouse maybe makes me aware that there's kind of a problem. Not that it's bad, because it's good. But like, can we date? We haven't tried it yet, but can we date in our house with kids here? Like, can we set aside time to make like special time, or does it take a restaurant and a babysitter? And
Yeah.
so that's what I meant by perspective, and I'm speaking without ever giving it a shot. So but some other things I've been made aware of were habits that I didn't know were habits.
Yeah.
Anybody want to borrow Elson for a little bit?
Tucker.
Sold.
Yeah.
I do think, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but I think sometimes even
I don't know what I'm talking
like
about.
seasons of life I think we've been in when our kids were really little and it was hard, like maybe when I was nursing and I just didn't want to leave my kids ever. Sometimes our like dates would be, we'd strap the kids in the car and drive and get coffee and then drive around a little bit and come home. And so they're like strapped in, usually happy, but somehow that felt like we got time to talk and just kind of process stuff together and hang out, and we got a coffee. So even though it wasn't like a traditional date, we didn't get babysitters, our kids were still with us, it still kind of felt like we got time to connect and hang out. And so I don't know, I think you don't have to have like a traditional get a babysitter, go to a fancy restaurant, all of those things to like date your spouse. You can get creative. And I mean, I think some of this last weekend, we watched a bunch of movies, just the two of us. And yeah, we got interrupted by kids and had to stop and do stuff, but it still was fun. I mean, and we got to like hang out together. So it just looks different, but it's still fun. And I think that's the point of just like having fun with your spouse and hanging out and chatting with each other and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just the other day we Roger was cooking burgers on the barbecue and we had our picnic table. I mean, it was so nice. We just like put out the outside checkerboard and I beat Roger at checkers.
She won.
So that was a great day for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how many kids and ages of kids can make it easier or more difficult. I know when it's kids that can't go entertain themselves at a certain age, I think a lot of it just has to be using time either early in the morning or late at night, because kids at a lot of ages just are demanding. You can't have personal time together. But I don't know. I think that this might be a good challenge for us to figure out some ways, some tips on how to date in quarantine. But I don't know. I just think there's even something special. It's nice that it's sunny out right now. Like today, for lunch, we just threw out a blanket in the front yard, and it was with our kids, and it was chaotic, and it was not a date. But just putting yourself in a different location just makes things feel differently. So even eating somewhere differently, or I'm Mr. Nostalgia. So like walking through, I love so many people are posting our first picture together. I don't know if you guys have seen that online, but couples posting their first picture together. So even just the thought of just walking down memory lane in your relationship and having those conversations is always fun for the nostalgia people. I don't know if the rest of you like that, but there's a date idea for me. I love it.
It was Carrie Edson recently. I think they said they have a hot tub, but they're getting up in the morning and sitting in their hot tub together before their kids get up.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, that's amazing. It's amazing. I wish we had a hot tub.
That's all you need.
You could just sit in the bathtub.
Oh,
There's hot water. Every house has a hot tub.
your kids wake up. What are you guys doing?
Well, yeah, wear a swimming suit. I don't.
It's
Come
so
on.
weird.
I'm just trying to think outside the box. I thought that's what we were
Can you
doing.
imagine
Here.
Charlie walking in? Mom, Dad.
It's quarantine, Julianne. It's time to get innovative, okay?
Trying to date.
You gotta get innovative here.
Hey, yeah. No thanks.
Okay, well, okay, sorry. Love it for 5 minutes. I don't know.
Oh, funny.
Love it for 5 minutes. Oh,
Too funny.
yeah.
Okay, what is one thing that each of you are hoping or dreaming for the future of Anchor Church? Something you're hoping or dreaming as you think of the vision of the future of Anchor Church.
Who's gonna go first?
Yeah.
Oh, he froze again.
I'll go. I mean, I feel like to some degree I shared it a little bit earlier. I just long to see a people who know the Word of God and who live it out.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound lofty, but I think as we all know and engage the scriptures more, if that is what a people would look like, what more of a lofty dream could you possibly have than having a people who are committed to the Lord in that way? So I think on a maybe more boiled down level, just that we could be a people who aren't intimidated by the Bible and who don't view it as all the things that we know it not to be, but who view it as what it actually is, that it is God's gracious gift to us, to tell us who he is, to tell us who we are, and to tell us how he has designed us and called us to live. So it feels pretty simplistic, but again, I just think the ripple effect and ramifications of that would be pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go. I just really, especially during the quarantine, I think I am really looking forward to the point where there's some small groups. I would love to see everyone at Anchor be part of like a super, super tight knit small group, where they're like many families in the midst of the bigger church at large. So that's my dream.
Love it.
I've been dreaming about just how the church, as we get more established, how as disciples, we understand that to serve the world is what it means to follow Jesus. And to do that in a way that doesn't, I'm trying to say this sensitively, I think sometimes churches, like, they almost publicize the way in which they serve others.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I would love to be a church that, based on our size, we serve more than anyone else in Missoula, and no one knows it. Like that to me is a dream, like, because that's serving with the heart of like to meet a need of people without any other reason than that Jesus loves them, and if he was here, he would be there to serve them. And are we doing that with that same passion and heart? So that's just been something to me that's been stirring more and more. Like, what does it look like to really live that way as Jesus lived that way towards us? So yeah, that's just kind of just the very beginnings, but that's been something that's been in my thoughts and prayers. So.
Love it. That's incredible.
Good. Should we go? You want to start?
Yeah, you go.
Well, just a couple things come to my mind just off the top of my head. I think this quarantine for me has made me realize how much maybe I took for granted seeing everybody every Sunday afternoon, and just how much I missed that. Even if it was just a quick passing by, people like, oh, hi, I just miss seeing everybody every week. And so in my mind right now, first thing is like, I'm so excited for the day when we can see each other again on Sundays and feel like in person a church family, and just to get back to that. I'm super excited for that. Practically speaking, I'm also super excited for the day when we have our own building, and I think even like moving to maybe Sunday mornings eventually would be really exciting. So those two things kind of get me excited to think about that. I think those two things, especially the building, makes me feel like we have a permanent home more, because it kind of feels like we don't really have a permanent home yet. And so having our own space that's ours, that gets me excited for whenever that will happen.
Yeah. It's gonna be incredible.
Anything to add?
Yeah. The Sweet Kids Pastor, I'm looking forward to that. I honestly, that question makes me think like way far into the future, and I look forward to the day where we see like a whole nother generation carrying on what we're working really hard at in the last 3 months. Just the groundwork that I feel like I remember digging through the archives at Mac when I worked there and throwing a lot of stuff out, but it was stuff from like the 40s and 50s, or whenever they started, 40s, 50s,
I think like 70s.
60s,
I don't know.
70s. I don't know. I wasn't born.
1800s.
It had to have been the 50s. Anyway, like their first couple of offerings were in their books, and it was like $3 or $4. I mean, small amounts. And just standing in this huge building and realizing that giving was had purposed what was coming, and that those people believed in that. And so I look forward to a day when, like, I don't know, we're really old and someone thinks we were born in the 30s or whatever. But I don't know. That's what I think about a lot.
That's really cool. I just think that's a super challenging thought for us, that building something that we can hand off healthy isn't something we do 30 years from now when we're thinking about checking out, but how do we start building today something that outlives us and isn't dependent on our personalities and our skill sets. But it's an interesting thing in the church because there is a lot of attraction to the presentation of the content, whatever, you know, I don't want to boil the gospel down to that, but there is a lot of attraction to that personality. But how do we create a functioning culture that isn't dependent on that presentation as much as that presentation is such value to the church? And that has, like, we've got the gift of building that today rather than trying to spend a decade shifting that in the future. It's just a huge task. So good thoughts, Robbie. Flins, what are you looking forward to, dreaming about?
I had a few things come to mind, just in, I think, similar to Julianne's in a lot of ways. I kind of think practically. So I'm really excited for, you know, a building that we can be consistent in, and a space that's ours that we can really call our own, and invite people to a space that is actually our space. But the other thing that I was thinking of too is I tend to be an introvert. I think I could go live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere just fine. But through this quarantine, I definitely feel the lack of community, just the lack of seeing you guys and everyone else. So I'm really looking forward to a really deep community at Anchor going forward that we really can dive into and create some new friendships and things like that, in addition to the friendships we have. So
Love it.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of small groups as well. Just kind of I don't know. I just want to keep diving in and building community. So
especially through this time during
Yeah.
quarantine, we just want people.
Yeah, we miss people. I feel like we went out for a walk and I was waving at people so awkwardly, and I was like, I'm sorry, I just don't get out much. And I was like, oh, we didn't all like that.
Quick side story. One of our Jaden's teachers came to visit us here at the house, which was nice. They kept their 6 feet distance, but Jaden was eating it up because he was just so desperate for people than us.
Yeah.
So you could just see how humans need that connection and that community. So
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
For me, short term is corporate worship again. I so miss that. Being in that setting. And I think more long term is doing events for like special things or specific like women event or couples event or like, I don't know, young adults even. I just like that kind of stuff. Like go hard for 3 days and then it's over type of like a conference or something big like that. I don't know. Obviously is way down the road, but Grace, you pulled off a retreat. Weren't even a church. You know, just like 2 months in, like stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff too. So that gets me excited.
I love it. We've got 13 minutes.
Did Kyle answer?
What's that?
Did Kyle answer?
I didn't. I'll try to be quick.
You will take the whole 13
I
minutes.
That's true.
give you at least 13 minutes of vision. Practical level, yeah, I think some buildings and some, there is just something about being able to facilitate consistent ministry that will be beautiful, and a place where Roger can build a technology kingdom.
To say that, I just thought just didn't think it was appropriate at that
Just
point to
say
say how much.
We knew it. We knew it. I think this is maybe there's a lot of spiritual things that I could just jump on that. Yes, this is the vision, the culture of the people. If I could just put that aside, not because I don't care about it, but because that will take forever to talk about. I just think right now there's just this, I'm ready to get to a place that feels a little more settled. I think church planting by nature is very unsettling. There's not routine, there's not consistency. We didn't plan and prepare and get trained to church plant. So I think that it's probably on a higher level for us. We started with a staff and a decent sized church rather than build up to that. So you've got a lot of needs from day one. And it's just like we're trying to plug holes. And then I think you throw this move church online and try to continually care for people when it feels like we're actually having to put a lot more time into the Sunday content. And I think we've learned that, and now we're going to start transitioning to trying to provide more community. But this whole thing just throws out any sort of consistency. It feels like every day, let's just get as much as we can get done today. And it never feels like enough. And then let's try to tackle some more tomorrow. And I just like getting to a place where there's some sort of routine and you kind of know what you need to get done day to day or week to week to be sustainable. And I don't know how long that takes in a church plant. I don't know how long it's going to take. Everybody's facing that to a dramatic way right now with how the virus is impacting. But I'm really looking forward to when we can get to the place where, and you guys are all incredible. Everybody is doing a lot of tasks that they're not comfortable with, a lot of tasks that they don't really want to do, don't feel really called to do, but this is what's necessary to be faithful to the call of God to build this church. And so I don't put that just on me. I think all of you guys are doing that. And it will be beautiful to get to the point where we all just kind of get to embrace our sweet spots. This is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what is life-giving. This is what I'm gifted and I can just focus on that and not all these other details that are super unfamiliar to me. That day will be beautiful. So that only took 3 of the 13 minutes. So there you go. That's what I'm excited about. Let's jump to a totally different direction here. This question says, one of my friends, someone in my life tells me that humans are mammals. Is that true? So way different.
Spencer, put
I'm gonna answer that.
Spencer.
I'll jump into that in a second. But I want you guys to consider in just a minute. I would like to close with just ways that you would encourage our church in this time. There's people who have lost jobs, who have lost a lot of their income, who are trying to parent at home. We've got single parents. We've got people who have health issues that this is really scary for. So I'd love to just sign off in a few minutes with just what's something that you could encourage our church with in this time. But I'll answer this question if you guys want to add anything to it. I think scientifically, if you look at what a mammal is and a human, I would say, yeah, we line up under the mammal section. But I think what's different is we've been given a soul. That's what makes humans separate, is God created us in his image, in his likeness. And so if you want to say scientifically that's where we align, yeah, I think that we're not reptiles. I'd say mammal makes a lot more sense, but we are not just animals. We are God's image in his likeness. We've been given souls, and we are eternal beings, very different than any other mammal. So that's my answer to that. Anybody want to add to that?
It seems like that's a question behind the question, right? That on the surface, it's like, yeah, I think we all would agree that we're mammals, but I doubt that's where the question's coming from. And that's why I think you spoke to it well, that are we more than just animals, created creatures? And I would imagine why someone's saying that to you, that's why it would be off-putting, right? It's not that you're warm-blooded and
right.
It's that, am I reduced simply to a animal-like creation?
Right. Yeah. No, I love it. I agree. There's more questions we didn't get to, but we're going to wrap this up in 8 minutes. How how would you, if you had a chance to just, and I know there's various aspects of people in our church, but I'm going to throw Danny on the spot because I'm not going to do it to you guys. You start. How would you just encourage somebody right now there's legitimate concern of, regardless of how they feel about the virus, this is impacting them, and it's a very unsettling time. And then I'd love anyone else to just encourage the church real quick.
I would say you need to give yourself grace because we're all in a brand new situation that we've never faced before. And I find comfort in realizing like everybody is doing this. It's not just me having to figure this stuff out. So you're not alone. We're all scrambling, and I think specifically of our kids, like angry at our kids more or yelling at our kids. And then it's like, no, I need to focus and realize like we're all in this new season together. And guess what? My kid needs to have a screen for a second while I take a minute to refocus myself. And just give yourself grace, and we're all learning. And I think we're all going to be better because of this. Yeah. I think it is teaching us a lot. And I think it's so easy also to get overwhelmed by the negative, but being able to pick out good things that are happening, maybe even just specifically in your family, hold on to those good things. But you can also find there's like such amazing things happening in our community and even our nation. So being able to hold on to those things and not just be overwhelmed by the negative.
It's really good.
Yeah.
How would you guys encourage the church?
I was reading through 1 Samuel, started that the other day. In the beginning, Samuel's mom, Hannah, is praying, and there was this line that really stuck out to me, and I hope it could offer us some encouragement. She's at the kind of the doorsteps of the temple, and she's praying, and this priest is observing her, and she is so grieved that she's not even like talking. She's just, her lips are moving. And he comes over and he thinks that she's drunk. And so he says to her, how long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. Mm-hmm. And Hannah responds in verse 15. She says, but Hannah answered, no, my Lord, I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. I think why that has stuck out to me so much is God can handle that. Mm-hmm. And in Hannah's story, what we see is fulfillment of that which she asked for. Her prayers were met. Her prayers were answered. Now, it would be awesome if we all prayed in that way and every single one of our prayers were answered. I don't know if it works like that. But what I do know is that God can handle a desperate cry of anxiety. And I'm not saying overwhelmed anxiety like I'm anxious. I'm saying anxiety like I don't know what to do right now. Everything is gone.
Yeah.
I love that the scriptures, not just in 1 Samuel there, but all across would tell us, go to the Lord. Yeah. Cry out to him. He will comfort. I don't know what that's going to look like on the other end of it, but what I know is that God is faithful in that, and he is present in that. And I don't mean for that to be some pie in the sky type of an answer, but I just think a lot of knowing that there's a woman in the scriptures in that way who is so grieved that she is faced first on the doorsteps of the temple because we're
yeah.
A lot.
Wow. That's amazing, man. Hey, Toddy, I'm going to ask you to maybe pray for us to wrap us up in a second here. But just something that's been on my heart, and I sent this to you guys, I think yesterday, is just my prayer is that on the other side of this, which is going to be really difficult, it already is impacting a lot of people, but that yes, we're better on the other side. But we don't really get to choose how this fully affects everybody and how that affects our jobs, and it's going to affect some people more than others. So I've just been really thinking about what does it mean to walk through this together. And for some of us, that means asking for help. For some of us, that means extending help. And help can look like finances. It can look like simple resources. It can look like relationships. It can look like spiritual. It can be prayer. What does it look like for us to come together as the church and be willing, be humble enough to say, here's a need that I have, and also be generous enough to give that which we have within us. So my prayer is that we get to the other side and we don't get to dictate the impact, but we can get to the other side and know that we were never alone, or that we were never lonely, that we may have had isolation, but we still had community. And so my hope is that we have a community. If you have any needs, concerns, that you are humble enough to say, hey, I could use help right now. There's no shame. This is rocking so many people's lives. There's no shame in reaching out and saying, hey, I need help, either physical, relational, spiritual, and that we would be a church that steps up and meets those needs. I shared with you guys just kind of 3 commitments I'm choosing to make and what hope our church makes. And these commitments that in this season, we will be available, we'll be innovative, and we'll be sensitive. That for whatever situations are around us, wherever we see lack, that we'll be available to people. We'll be available to each other. We'll be available to the church. We'll be available to Missoula. We'll be innovative. It seems like we're operating with a lot less, but we won't do less. We'll be innovative. We'll figure out how to get this done. And we'll be sensitive. We're not just going to be standing on our own thoughts, our own opinions. We're going to step into other people's worlds and recognize we don't know how this is impacting them on any level, the fears that they have. So what does it mean to be that? So let's be available, let's be innovative, and let's be sensitive. And I encourage our church to be that, be available, be innovative, and be sensitive. So we love you, church. Todd's going to pray for us, wrap this up. And I just want to remind you, today's Wednesday. Tomorrow night, Thursday, we're going to have communion together, and that's going to be at 7:00. And that's going to be on Zoom. Is that correct, Tucker? Am I remembering right? So we will send out how to log into a Zoom meeting like this, and we'll all be able to be together and take communion together. Going to be really simple, not a church service. Danny's very tired. But we'll have communion together tomorrow. We'd love for you to hop on at 7, and a real simple time to just reflect on the body and the blood of Jesus and the Last Supper that we celebrate on Thursday. Friday, we're going to have Good Friday that you'll be able to stream similar like this. Saturday, that'll be at 7 as well. Saturday at 7, we're going to have a prayer on Zoom right here. We're just going to be praying for Easter the next day, and that God will move mightily through that. And so we invite you to be a part of. So this is several nights in a row. You can log in where you might be alone, but you can't be lonely. So log into that, and then we'll celebrate Easter. So love you, Anchor Church. Thanks for staying up late with us. And I know some of you will stream this later, but thanks for checking this out. And we just love you so much. Hi, Brenna. Are you okay?
Parents of the year.
Night owl. Toddy, will you wrap us up?
Love to. Jesus, I just really ask that you would help us remember that you're present. You are with us. There's never a moment where you are not right there in the moment with us. Mm-hmm. In Joshua, you remind Joshua, like, be strong and be courageous. Do not be dismayed, for I am with you wherever you go. And so I pray for those moments this week, Lord, those moments where as parents we're impatient or yelling. I pray that in those moments where we're stressed because we don't know financially what things are going to be this week and next week, I pray in those moments where we just feel lonely, God, that your Spirit would remind us that without a doubt you are present and you know what we're going through, and you will never forsake us or leave us, but you will be the one to carry us through it. So I pray that for our church. I pray that for Anchor. I pray that for Missoula as a whole, Lord, that we would recognize the truth that Jesus, you love us and you're with us. So we just commit this time to you. We commit our church to you, Lord. We love them. We pray that you show them your great love in new and sweet ways throughout this week. So it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for jumping on tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Look at us. We're staying
everyone.
up till 10, hanging out. We're amazing. You guys are the best. She is. Hey, are you guys howling at 8 o'clock?